Hot take. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, is the best Halloween sequel. Yet, it also contains the biggest missed opportunity of the whole franchise. Now, to give props where props are due, when I would ask adults, as an itty-bitty kid,
what's the scariest movie you've ever seen?
They'd often say Nightmare on Elm Street.
Tina?
And that has a lot to do with the fact that, my parents...
It's 7 films later.
And the people they worked with, the people they were around, they would have been coming of age in the 80s. So, 84, Nightmare comes out. That's the movie that got him. Could have very easily been The Exorcist. But to give Wes Craven props, Nightmare's a great movie, and I would argue out of all the 80s slashers, the big ones, Michael, Freddy, Jason, we can throw Chucky in there, we'll throw Pinhead in there. Nightmare's the strongest franchise. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. Halloween, on the other hand, has the best OG movie. But its sequels are not strong at all. Yet because of its autumnal imagery, I love it. But today, we're talking about Halloween 4. I love that movie. Absolutely love it.
And we sat down and put a pitch together that we thought would make Moustaha happy and solve his problems, but also create a suspense thriller that we wanted to make. So I went in and pitched our own story, and they really sort of leapt at it.
So on 4, I took it over and went back to the basics of number 1.
It was the first Halloween sequel I ever saw, but I love 1978's Halloween. John Carpenter and Debra Hill did such a great job with so little, and when Carpenter's good, he's great. The Thing is a terrific film, but then you've got something like The Fog, where it's like, man, Dean Cundey just saved John Carpenter again and again. Halloween 2 is another great example of that. Halloween 2 sucks, but it looks great. When Carpenter doesn't have a good script, it really just affects his body of work, in my opinion. People say I don't like John Carpenter. I think it's like the Tim Burton thing. I'm just holding him to such a high standard when his stuff is subpar. I really feel it.
And I'd been working with my writing partner, McElroy, on another project, and he was a fan, but also a great genre writer.
The scripts they had didn't work, and they were running out of time because there was a writer's strike coming. And he came to me and said, would I look at this project? Could I come on board and take a look at it? And we had 11 days to do the script. So, I sort of jumped in with both feet and just ran with it. And I loved it because Halloween 2 had been one of the great experiences for me when I was in college, going to see that with friends. So the chance to bring the shape back to life was a dream come true for me.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're ignorant.
So, for me, growing up, I mystified horror films. It wasn't until my parents split up and that my mom kind of saw an easy way to get me to calm down by being like, yeah, you can rent Halloween tonight. Yeah, you can rent The Shining. My dad wouldn't let me do that kind of thing. So I definitely mystified the horror film. And there was also the fact that I was always hoping, please, let there be some beautiful titties. And, Halloween 4, it has one of the worst masks of the whole franchise. Hell, even Halloween 5, which I have no love for, arguably has a better mask, and that's a weird mask. Man, that's the worst thing about Halloween 4. Some of the acting is a little rough, but the mask is absolutely the worst of the franchise. Okay, so I skipped Halloween 2. I didn't see that one until just a few years ago. And as I mentioned before, not a fan of it, although it looks great. Dick Warlock is an awesome Michael Myers. Dean Cundey's lighting and camera movement is fantastic. So for me, Halloween 4, that's where I picked up. And it's great because I hadn't seen Halloween 3 either. So skipping ahead, when I find out, wait a minute, Laurie and Michael Myers are brother and sister? How did I miss that in the first film? Well, just because it's not in the first film. And that's one of the worst things that John Carpenter did to that franchise. It's like, oh, I don't want to make a sequel to Halloween. I think that's stupid. Let me write a terrible script. Anyway, when you start Halloween 4 and you realize, okay, we're in a universe now where Jamie Lee Curtis is dead, but allegedly she's Michael Myers' sister, and she's got this orphaned daughter who's our protagonist. All right. I'm not a fan of the whole let's make Laurie and Michael brother and sister, but it works for me in 4. I was able to go with it because the Jamie Lloyd character played by Danielle Harris, and God, she has to be like 8 in that movie. She's so tiny. She's great, man. Danielle Harris gives, hands down, one of the greatest child performances in a movie ever. And if we're just talking about horror films, it is the best ever. Like, she's great, man. She could have been in Jack Clayton's The Innocents back in 61. I mean, her performance is that good. And I can just remember watching as a little kid with my neighbor. His mom's girlfriend was always taking care of her. So like he and I, it was really easy to kind of like secretly watch horror films with him. And yeah, someone gifted me for my birthday Halloween 4. So I go over to his house and we popped the movie in, and we were immediately enchanted by Danielle Harris. The big brother persona kicked in, and it's like, you want to protect this girl. A great shot at the beginning when we're introduced to her character and she's looking out the window and it's raining and there's lightning flashing across her face, and we think we see the ambulance that Michael Myers is driving parked across the street, and it's just such a moody shot. The opening title sequence of Halloween 4 is fantastic. They don't use the theme music. It's just this ambient music that Alan Howarth is doing with autumnal imagery, and it's one of the great moments of any of the films. So right off the bat, really strong start. Michael breaks out of the hospital again, but in a slightly different way. Really strong start. I mean, even when Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis goes to the wreckage of the ambulance, and it's just like this handheld kind of shot, and they've got like smoke blowing into the frame. It's really cheaply done, but it looks great. And I also like how the film, like, you know, clearly Jamie Lloyd didn't see the ambulance outside her home in real life, because we see that the ambulance is destroyed, but the movie's already telling us that there's a psychic connection between the two without ever being like, they have a psychic connection. I just watched Poltergeist 2 the other day, having been a long time fan of the first one, and I hated how they threw in this whole like, oh, all the women in the family are psychic now. It's like, it's too much. Why are you spelling everything out? So I love Halloween 4. Danielle Harris as Jamie Lloyd just makes it. Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis. We get a lot of him in the movie, and it's a lot of fun.
God damn you.
And it's the screenplay, man. So Alan B. McElroy wrote Halloween 4 in 11 days because there was a writer's strike coming up. So he allegedly turns in his draft, you know, the first and only draft of Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, with hours to spare before the writer's strike happens. So write this down. You need to have a deadline. I think that Halloween 4 has a good mixture of familiarity, but with a twist. It's about as violent as the second one. It also has one of the best sex scenes in a Halloween film. You don't really get nudity in it, so it's kind of a disappointment because to go back it's like, why am I writing horror movies? Well, I want to see good craftsmanship and a moody movie with great visuals, but yeah, I'm also hoping that there's, you know, the revelation of breasts within the film, because, you know, like, I'm a kid, like this was our sexual awakening. And I'm also like a boy, so, you know, we're innately evil. So, you know, sex and violence, that's all mixed together, and, you know, we're gravitating towards that.
No, doing just fine right here.
But yeah, there's a scene with the boyfriend, and he's cheating on kind of our second protagonist with the sheriff's daughter, and it's a really hot scene, but you don't actually see anything, and I always thought that was interesting.
Shit.
Oh, it's my dad.
Your dad?
He catches us like this. He's gonna skin you alive. Come on.
And some of the behind-the-scenes stuff on the film, apparently Moustaha Akkad was like, no nudity. We don't do nudity in Halloween movies. So Dwight actually, literally, the director was like, okay, I'll give you like the sexiest scene I can in like 45 seconds without actually showing any nudity. So I love the film. I love that it was written in a hurry, and the big takeaway is, yeah, man, have a deadline. Just knock it out. You're making a freaking sequel to a super famous movie. But here's the great missed opportunity of Halloween 4. And from the first time I saw it, I'm still waiting for the end of the movie for the crazy apocalyptic preacher to show up. Like, what was up with that? There's a great scene after our showdown between Michael Myers and Dr. Loomis in the gas station. Or we should say the filling station, because it definitely has that vibe. Yeah, a great scene where you see Michael revealed for the first time, and he's not wearing his mask yet, but his face is kind of white, like he's got a sock on his face or something. I always thought that was a nice touch. Like he's wearing the mechanic's pullover outfit or whatever, and Loomis shoots at him, and somehow like the whole gas station explodes. After that, he gets picked up. He's hitchhiking basically to Haddonfield, and Dr. Loomis gets picked up by this preacher, and he's driving a old pickup truck, and he's sipping on whiskey and singing, in the blood, or whatever old hymn they're singing. And I love it because he's clearly a Protestant, evangelical type. Yet what does Hollywood do? They give him the Roman collar. So that goes right back to yesterday's video on The Exorcist. It's like, all right, we're going for more of like a revivalist, Protestant preacher, who believes the end of the world is coming. But we're gonna give him a Roman collar. And now that I say that, like, I understand, like Lutherans and Episcopalians, Anglicans, they wear the Roman collar too, but this isn't that vibe. Like Lutheran and Episcopalian / Anglican, they still have like the high church. They still have a little bit of that church tradition. Protestants don't have that at all. And you don't see Lutherans preaching about the end of the world and stuff like that. So I'm over here like, yeah, this dude's supposed to be a Baptist preacher, or more likely like Churches of God, Pentecostal. He probably had snakes in the back of that truck. But it's such an awesome scene. It's just this one scene dropped in the middle of the movie where we get this one-time only supporting character, and it's like Loomis. It's like for the only time in the whole franchise, Loomis sees himself like another dude who's searching evil.
Come on, old man, let's go!
Where you heading, Mr. Loomis? Haddonfield. You're hunting it, ain't you?
Yeah, you're hunting it all right. Just like me.
What are you hunting, Mr. Sam?
Apocalypse, end of the world, Armageddon. It's always got a face and a name. I saw it clear as breasts and blue suede shoes.
Would you like a drink?
You can't kill damnation, mister. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river.
And it's like Alan B. McElroy put that in there, just for like a little bit of like symbolism, or just to kind of let us have a moment to meditate. It's kind of like the devil's eyes, the blackest eyes. It's like that monologue from the first movie that Dr. Loomis gives. It's like this scene in the truck with the apocalyptic preacher is that moment in 4 where we get the same meditation, but it's done in a lighthearted way. And you see Loomis happy, like he takes a nip of whiskey and he's like, they're singing the hymn. And I'm thinking like, dude, this is gonna be freaking awesome. The preacher's probably gonna die, like he's probably gonna sacrifice himself so everyone can get away. But when Loomis shows up, at the sheriff's office and like, he's back, we've got to get him. He's gonna have an apocalyptic preacher with him. And I'm like, imagine like the preacher with a shotgun too. But no, dude, that never happens. And I'm thinking, wait, what? You dropped Loomis off in Haddonfield and kept looking for the devil? Wouldn't Loomis have been like, no, bro, the dude you're looking for is here? So just such a huge missed opportunity. I love Halloween 4. If you haven't seen it, you know, keep your expectations low. The Mask is terrible, but man, Danielle Harris as Jamie Lloyd gives such a great performance. You really care about her. You're really worried about her. The autumnal imagery is great. It has kind of a made-for-TV look, you know, but I don't care at all. Silence of the Lambs has a made-for-TV look, right? And man, big props to Alan B. McElroy. You wrote the best Halloween sequel in 11 days. I just love Halloween 4, and I'm so grateful that, just like with seeing The Exorcist for the first time, seeing the OG Halloween for the first time, there was just something about it. You know, you're a little kid, your parents are divorced, you're hanging out with your neighbor friend whose mom is dying, and you are finding solace in these scary movies, man. And in the trauma they present, like, you feel safe because it's a controlled environment. You're having a safe thrill, and you know, there's the promise of beautiful titties.
Have some coffee.